Imagine standing on the edge of a massive fiery pit, molten rock bubbling and spitting just a few meters away. Now imagine tossing your garbage in and watching it vanish in seconds. Seems like the perfect solution to our trash problem, right? But what if we actually tried it? Could we really use volcanoes as giant natural incinerators? Or would that just turn a bad problem into a global disaster? Let's find out what would happen if we dumped all our trash into active volcanoes. Let's start with the basics. Every year, the average American generates about 1,600 pounds of trash, and in total, the US alone produces over 250 million tons of garbage annually. Now scale that up globally. We're talking billions of tons of waste piling up every year, clogging landfills, polluting oceans, and leaking toxins into the earth. It is no wonder people are asking, can't we just throw all this into a volcano and let nature melt it away? It sounds genius at first. Volcanoes are already hot enough to melt rock, so surely they can handle some plastic, right? Well, not quite. First, we need to understand what kind of volcano we're even talking about. Most people picture the slow-moving, glowing lava rivers you see in places like Hawaii. These are called shield volcanoes. They erupt slowly and have those large, open lava lakes that look perfect for dumping things into. But here's the catch. Those types are rare. The majority of active volcanoes on Earth are stratovolcanoes, tall, cone-shaped giants like Mount St. Helens or Mount Vesuvius. These volcanoes don't just sit quietly and bubble. They explode with terrifying force due to built-up gas pressure. So even if we could get our trash to a volcano, most of them are the kind that might respond by blowing up in your face. There are around 1,500 potentially active volcanoes in the world, but very few of them are actually accessible, stable, and close enough to where people live. Why? Because humans, unsurprisingly, don't tend to build cities next to lava lakes. So even if we found the perfect volcano, transporting millions of tons of garbage, there would require a massive logistics network. We'd need fleets of trucks, ships, or even helicopters to haul our waste to remote volcanic zones. That alone would cost billions and create a huge carbon footprint, potentially doing more harm than the trash itself. And don't forget, once we reach the volcano, it's not exactly safe up there. Standing near the mouth of an active volcano isn't like standing near a bonfire. It's extremely hazardous. The air is filled with toxic gases like sulfur dioxide and hydrochloric acid. The ground is unstable, and lava can spit, splash, or explode without warning. But let's say we managed to fly a container of trash over a bubbling lava lake and dropped it in. What would happen? Actually, we already have an answer. In 2002, Ethiopian scientists tossed a 30-kilogram bag of garbage into a lava lake for research. The result? A sudden burst of steam explosions and lava splatter. That's because when something relatively cool, like household trash, hits lava, it causes a violent reaction. Water inside materials instantly turns to steam, and that can hurl molten rock and gas into the air. If we dumped tons of trash in all at once, we could create massive lava geysers, poisonous gas clouds, and even trigger volcanic instability. In short, volcanoes don't like surprises. Here's another problem. But it's not enough to destroy everything. Some synthetic materials, like PVC plastic or certain chemicals, may not burn completely or can release toxic byproducts into the atmosphere. Worse, radioactive or electronic waste might survive the heat and become embedded in the surrounding rock, or worse, get launched into the air during eruptions. Instead of solving our pollution problem, we might just be weaponizing it. So, dumping garbage into a volcano sounds more like a sci-fi disaster than an environmental solution. But are there any benefits to this wild idea? And what about other options, like burning trash here on Earth, or even launching it into space? Stick around for part 2, where we explore whether trash incineration for energy or space disposal could be the real future of waste, management, or just another expensive fantasy. Even if we somehow manage to load all our garbage onto trucks, ships, or planes and transport it to one of the few active volcanoes on Earth, say, a shield volcano with a relatively calm lava lake, things would still go wrong fast. Let's imagine that. You've just driven for hours, maybe days, with a container full of smelly household waste, old electronics, plastic bottles, industrial scraps, even some biohazard materials, only to reach the edge of a glowing, boiling pit of lava. You're re-wearing heat-resistant gear and breathing through a heavy-duty oxygen mask because the area is filled with toxic gases like sulfur dioxide and hydrogen chloride. One wrong step and you're toast, literally. You carefully dump the trash into the lava and boom. Yep, not a slow, satisfying melt, a literal explosion. Why? Because lava lakes are surprisingly sensitive. When something significantly cooler, like a bag of garbage, hits the surface, it causes a sudden and violent reaction. The cold material traps steam inside the lava, which rapidly expands and explodes outward. One small trash bag might send lava and gas shooting 80 meters into the air. And we're talking about thousands of tons of trash here. The result? Massive volcanic bursts, rockfall, and maybe even mini eruptions. Imagine doing this daily. It would turn the volcano into a hazard zone for miles. Now let's say you could somehow toss in the trash safely without setting off explosions. What happens next? Well, contrary to popular belief, lava isn't a magical dissolver. It can destroy a lot of paper, plastic, food waste, but not everything. Some materials won't melt completely. Items like glass, metal, and certain chemicals may resist breakdown or create harmful byproducts. Worse, some of those might combine with the sulfur gases and produce toxic fumes. Think about plastics. They contain chlorine, benzene, and other compounds. When incinerated improperly, especially in something uncontrolled like a volcano, they release dioxins, some of the most toxic chemicals known to science. These chemicals don't just disappear. They rise into the air, settle in nearby forests, water systems, and even travel to populated areas through wind currents. In other words, the volcano becomes a pollution cannon. Then there's the issue of carbon emissions. You thought landfills were bad? Hauling millions of tons of trash to remote volcanoes would require an enormous fleet of vehicles, trucks, cargo planes, ships. That's a logistical nightmare that burns fossil fuels like crazy, increasing our carbon footprint just to toss waste into nature's furnace. It's like fighting fire with fire, literally. And here is a scary thought. What if someone gets the bright idea to throw toxic or radioactive waste into a volcano? Sounds efficient, right? Just melt it all down and pretend it's gone? Wrong. Radioactive materials don't just vanish in lava. They can aerosolize, meaning they could be blasted into the air as tiny radioactive particles, carried by the wind across oceans and borders. That's not just dangerous, it's catastrophic. A single failed disposal could poison ecosystems, kill wildlife, and endanger human health for generations. Think Chernobyl, but volcanic. So even if the idea of volcano dumping sounds cool in theory, in practice, it's one of the worst environmental decisions we could make. But there's another twist. What if we harnessed volcanic heat instead of using it as a dump? Some scientists suggest that we could build waste-to-energy plants near geothermal hotspots or inactive volcanoes. In these systems, garbage would be burned in a controlled environment where we can filter out toxins and capture heat to generate electricity. That way, we're not just disposing of waste, we're transforming it into energy. It's not a perfect solution, but it's smarter, safer, and far more sustainable than tossing bags into lava lakes. Or maybe we could look beyond Earth altogether. Space disposal has been floated as a wild idea. Strap our trash to rockets and launch it into the sun. Sounds crazy? That's because it is for now. Launching even a small payload costs tens of millions of dollars and risks massive accidents. But maybe one day, with reusable rockets and better propulsion tech, space disposal could become viable for certain types of waste, like nuclear byproducts that need to disappear forever. Until then, though, our best solutions are still here on Earth, like reducing how much waste we produce in the first place, recycling more effectively, investing in smart incineration, and developing biodegradable materials. Because no matter how hot and hungry a volcano looks, it's not the trash bin of the future. It's nature's ticking time bomb. And poking it with a garbage stick? Not the brightest idea.